ugly, but to go to a frightening movie, because you'd be trying to grab a hold of her all through the whole kind of thing. You know, you're trying to grab her tit or leg or stroke her thigh or anything just to get close to this girl. And she'd be banging you off all the time until something frightening happened. And then you'd go, oh, you're like, oh, yeah, I'd look after you. You know, like...
For your execution, you are entitled to one last request.
Anything?
Anything? It's very unusual, but... Señorita!
Caramba! Madre mía, ay, ay, ay.
It's mañana!
You're too late. He's dead.
There's a club run by an ex-wrestler called Bunny something or other. Big fellow. And we were up there, we were doing some dates up in Manchester, and we'd gone into the club because it was a place where we could eat and drink after we'd done the show. So we invariably used to finish up there. So we were in there, and Bunny wasn't there. And I said to somebody, where's Bunny? And they said, he died. And I said, he died? What happened to him? He was quite a young man. And they said, well, he went the best way he could. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, he was having sex with a girl. And in the middle of it, he died. And then we were all kind of saying, oh, what a way to go. And I'm thinking, if you're going, and we were doing all that man crap, you know, which is... But then I was writing some sketches about this Mexican. And I thought, now how can I get him killed off? And I thought, why get him killed off? He's always allowed a last request. So why not just give him that last request? Let him screw himself to death. And that's really, again, how the gags come about. If you sat down and thought, how will I work that out? It wouldn't. You couldn't work it out. It needs some sort of outside influence coming in it.
I can't stand that chap. Young upstart. You realize that he insulted my Felicity last night?
Really?
Yes. I actually have a good mind to challenge him to a duel.
I don't think that's a very good idea.
Why not?
He's the greatest duelist in the world.
Well, I shall just have to make sure that my expertise matches his. Here comes the blighter now. Excuse me, sir. May I have a word with you?
Certainly, sir.
3 weeks ago, you insulted my wife.
Really? Very well, sir. My seconds will wait upon you. Swords at dawn.
I cannot let the series go by without telling him one last gag about the Reverend Ian Paisley. He is speaking on the day of resurrection. He's standing up in his pulpit, and he talks like that. And the day will come when the Lord will destroy the world with fire and brimstone. And everybody that was ever unturned into the good Mother Earth will rise up to heaven. And when they get to the heaven, God and St. Peter will be outside the gates with the big book of retribution. And as your name is called, the good Lord will turn over, and he will look down the list, and he will see what you did. And if you are good in life and Christian in life, the Lord will take you to his very bosom. But if ye have been evil, if ye have been wicked, if ye have followed the ways of Satan himself, ye will be cast down. Ye will be cast down into everlasting, eternal flame. There will be a great weeping and a gnashing, a terrible gnashing of teeth. And there's one old woman sitting down there, and she says, Reverend Paisley, I don't have any teeth. And Paisley said, teeth will be provided! God, that takes it out of you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Oh, he's a jolly good man. Oh, he's a jolly good man. Oh, he's a jolly good man.
The clergy is not without humor. I mean, any of them. I mean, they, people think that these fellows don't, or these women don't have a sense of humor, but they do. You know. And if they're dealing with people in all sorts of angles of anguish or marriage or modes of sin and guilt and everything else, we're all fairly frail. And I'm quite sure that they have a lot of trade gags.
As I have said time and time again, but I think that it bears repetition, the theological orthodoxy expressed so fully in the 9th ecclesiastical consistory, corresponding
Good morning. This is your wake-up call.
I'm walking into a bar, and standing outside is a nun. And she looks at him and she says, "Before you enter this den of iniquity, think of your mother and your father." He said, "They're dead." "They're dead in heaven." She said, "Well, think of the damage the alcohol is going to do to your brain." "Huh? What are you talking about? Have you ever had a drink?" And the nun says, "No." He said, "Well, how the hell can you stand there talking about it and saying drink is going to do damage to your brain if you've never had it?" "I'll tell you what, I'll go in, get your drink, bring it out, give it to you, you drink it. If you don't like it, then you can talk about it. But don't talk about things you've never experienced. What'll you have?" And the nun says, "I don't know." "What do ladies generally drink?" He says, "Gin." She says, "All right, I'll have a gin. But get it in a cup so nobody will notice." The fellow goes into the bar and he says, "Give us a pint of beer and a double gin in a cup." And the fellow says, "Is that bloody nun out there again?" Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider, which sat down beside her, and...
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! It is I, your prince. Let down your hair.
My sleeping beauty, I have but to kiss her soft lips, and she shall wake.
Where on earth have you been? Oh, go on, I don't want to hear any of your lies. I know gallivanting around, enjoying yourself, leaving me here all on my own for the past 100 years. Oh, just look at this place, just look at it. Dust and cobwebs all over the place. Look at the floor, it's absolutely filthy, absolutely covered in grime. And you might have cleared it up for filth before you go and leave me here and then wake me up with all this dust and filth. And who on earth put this spinning wheel here? For heaven's sake, someone could go and prick that... Ouch.
Thank God for that.
Rapunzel! It is I, your prince. Let down your hair.
Next time, kindly pick a bigger window.
I used to go to the cinema in Dublin. If there's anybody from Dublin watching the show, it was called The Ranch. It's on the quays in Dublin. It wasn't actually called The Ranch, it was called The Corinthian. But there were so many cowboy pictures, all the kids called it The Ranch. Going down to the ranch.
I really hated Roy Rogers. I wanted every villain in the world to gang up on and get him. Well, I mean, not only because of the way he dressed, but the way he smiled. He was always smiling. And he wore this big hat, this big white hat. And no matter what happened, I mean, he would be in a saloon, 10 men would be jumping at him from all angles. He would be thrown off balconies. He'd have chairs crashed across his head. He'd have bottles broken over his back. He'd have tables flung at him. His hat never came off. It never, and we'd all sitting there saying, hat's still on. Why didn't he lose his hat? That's all we could think about. And then when the thing was finished, he'd get on his horse and he'd sing, which was even worse. We hated him. He'd sing like, my four-legged friend, and all that.
Loved to have been a cowboy. Even as children, we got a tape recorder and recorded a Western play. As kids. We read it off, all saying, "How you doing, Hank? I've come to town to look for the sheriff." "Why's you looking for the sheriff, Hank?" Which is great. Little Irish fellas, you play it back and it comes out, "How are you doing, Hank? Why have you come to town?" "I've come to town to look for the sheriff." But I love all it. You get the cowboy, he goes.
Howdy, stranger. What'll it be?
Whiskey.
Hey, hold it, everybody! Pigsty Pete's riding into town! Pigsty Pete! Let's get out of here! Out of here!
Didn't you hear what the man said, stranger? Pigsty Pete's riding into town.
That don't scare me none, man. I don't stand aside for no man.
But Pigsty Pete,
I don't care.
don't you say I didn't warn you. Pigsty Pete! Pigsty Pete!
Have a drink with me.
I liked Tonto when he came in. I didn't like the Lone Ranger. I liked Tonto. And then I heard years later that my Kimasabi, when he'd go, "Tonto, which is the best direction to go in?" "Well, we go south, my Kimasabi." Somebody told me that Kimasabi is Apache for chicken shit.
Cowboy pictures. How many times have you seen cowboy pictures? The saloon. Have you ever just seen a sign that says lavatory? Gents. And those cowboys are eating beans and drinking beer all day. They don't even fart. They do, that's why they're shooting off those guns all the time. But it's not only the people, the animals. You see all those horses tied. Have you ever looked at the ground? There's nothing on it. I live in the country. I walk 5 minutes. It's everywhere. But in those cowboy pictures, all those horses tied up, nothing. Get those great ranchers bringing in thousands of cattle. Nothing. I mean, how did they do it? How did they stop it? Is it kind of 3 minutes before they start taking a movie, they say, "All right, put the corks in." I mean, you see a stampede of buffalo. 20,000 buffaloes stampeding. Now, why do animals stampede? Because they're frightened. And what happens to any living creature on this earth when he's frightened? Your anal nerve goes. And yet when that dust clears, 20,000 buffalo, there's not one turd on the ground. My lord, may I speak to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury before they leave to reach the verdict, and before you, my lord, pass sentence upon that verdict. Thank you. You have heard that for many years I lived a happy and simple bachelor existence. And like most bachelors, I was rather set in my ways. I was an active member of the local church society. I also belonged to a small musical appreciation group made up of some very close friends. It was during one of these musical evenings that I first met the woman who was later to become my wife. She was actually everything that a man could have wished for. She was attractive and witty and intelligent. But above all, she shared, or at least she gave the appearance of sharing, my interests. It was only in the following months that I began to see her as she really was. She created such embarrassing scenes that gradually, one by one, my friends began to stay away. I had to suffer her sulks, her fits of frenzied rage, her long, accusing silences, until eventually she just followed me about the house, nagging incessantly. There was no escape from her shrewish voice. And then on the night referred to by the prosecution, she followed me down into the last sanctuary that I had, the cellar. My mind snapped. I could take no more. I picked up a hammer, and as she turned to face me, mocking laughter fell from her twisted mouth. There was no fear in her eyes. She dared me to hit her. She actually dared me. And God forgive me, I did. I struck again and again and again.
Henry!
Yes, dear?
What are you doing down there in the cellar?
Just practicing. Just practicing. Good night. Thank you, and may your God be with you.